Okay, so again, my name is Ryan, PA with gastrointestinal medicine. I wanted to make this video specifically as a patient education resource. I see a lot of patients during the day. I'm pretty much filled up from 8 to 4, and I don't get lunch and I don't get breaks. So I just see patients back to back to back to back. One of the things that is limiting, obviously, with the way that medicine is kind of designed is that we do have to stick to a pretty tight schedule, and we don't get a whole lot of time to spend with our patients usually. And basically we have to, be productive, otherwise businesses don't run. So while that works most of the time, one of the things that obviously we have problems with is time spent on nutrition education. And I've tried to do this as much as I can. If I have extra time, I'll spend more time. I do use handouts. I do use online sort of resources, not so much anymore because I've kind of boiled it down to what I think works for 90% of my GI folks. So what I'm going to do today is just kind of go over what I would typically recommend for somebody who has, very typical complaints that we see: abdominal gas, bloating, irregular bowel habits, dyspepsia, like nauseated sensation, typically with meals, even heartburn or reflux. I think this diet works really well for. I think it can get at other things too, and I'll kind of explain that as we go. But I'm just going to kind of read off the sheet. I have this this printout that I stole from Stanford. It's one full page, and I might try to scan this and just put it in so that you can kind of have what I use as a reference, posted on X potentially. So just be on the lookout for that. If you like what I'm talking about on this video, there are certainly other resources you can use. I like this one because it's really easy. I think one of the big drawbacks with a lot of nutrition recommendations is that there'll be a lot of like, well, don't do this unless it's a certain quantity or it's a certain, unless it's a certain type, or, you can do these foods now, but count the calories. It's too much information. It doesn't have to be overly complicated. Some of the things I like a lot are actually things like the carnivore diet, because it literally takes the guesswork out of it. If it's meat or eggs, it's okay. If it's anything other than those things, then just don't eat it, right? So that's super simple. But a lot of people, and I feel like, especially my patients who are women, just don't seem to really do that well on carnivore. I've had a lot of male patients who have done well for a period of time and then revert back. I've seen all sorts of different variations, but that's just my observation. I know a lot of women do very well on it, and some of my most successful patients have been full carnivore and women. So that certainly is something that we see in the clinic. It's just not as common. When I tell men that they can eat as much steak and eggs as they want, they kind of go nuts. This is like a dream of theirs come true. But anyway, so I'm going to go over this diet, and I'll kind of just go through why I do this. Essentially, when we deal with bloating, any people who have significant gas and bloating, obviously this is a fermentation problem. There are bacteria in the gut that ferment and produce gases, and then as a byproduct of that gas production, it distends the bowel. That kind of problem over time, in addition to some other things, creates bowel hypersensitivity, which causes the pain and cramping. And typically this will get better because as the gut decompresses with the bowel movement or passage of gas, people feel better. So my main goal is just to reduce fermentation in the gut as much as possible. I think we've gotten used to some level of fermentation because we've been told historically to eat grains and fruits and vegetables as a part of a healthy diet. Some of that probably is accurate. I think it's been overdone. And I think what we're seeing now is just like the ramifications of too much fermentation, frankly. It's not quite as simple as that, but I think that this is a good place to start. So what I typically recommend, I'll just kind of go through this stuff. The things that you're 100% never going to have problems with in terms of fermentation in your gut are meat and eggs, right? So basically carnivore diet. And it's pretty wild. This is typically what I base my diet around is pretty heavy meat and eggs. And I will tell you that as a provider, I've seen this work. As a patient, I know it works because this is what I do. So I've had big problems with gas and bloating, abdominal cramping. Most of that is self-inflicted over time, just making poor dietary choices. And I will tell you that since I've done this, I produce no gas. My bowels move normally. I do not make any weird noises through my gut, which used to be really embarrassing, especially when I was interviewing patients. So that's what I advise my patients to sort of base their whole meal around, their whole daily nutrition. I very much like beef. I think beef is one of the most nutrient-dense types of foods that you can eat. And that can be a good steak, that can be a good quality ground beef. If you can't get really good quality because of cost, anything will do. Anything's better than nothing. So beef I like, and I do eat beef every day for lunch, at least 2 beef patties with cheddar. That's my lunch. I do eat eggs every day, at least 4 or 5 eggs in the morning, cooked in butter, right? Dinners, usually my wife will cook some meat. We generally cycle between salmon, chicken, beef, or pork. We kind of do a variety. We have kids, they like variety. And then she'll usually cook a low fermentable vegetable. Vegetables are something that you can introduce as long as you tolerate them. There are some vegetables I like more than others, just based on their nutrient density, essentially. Sweet potatoes is one of those things. I like sweet potatoes. I eat them quite a bit. Again, put that butter in there. I usually use some cinnamon, which I think has other sort of medicinal properties potentially. Squash and zucchini don't bother me. Those are things that are low fermentable. You can certainly get away with tomatoes. A lot of people think that tomatoes are problematic because of their effect on acid reflux. I don't think that's the case when people just eat tomatoes. When people tell me that they have problems with tomatoes, it's usually they can't eat pizza or they can't eat lasagna, which are obviously problematic for other reasons. So just plain tomatoes are fine. They're low fermentable. Cucumbers are great. Even technically lettuce is okay. I tell people not to waste their time with it. It's not very nutrient dense, and I don't think you need it. And some people have problems with it. I think that probably has a lot to do with how it's kind of washed and processed and stored. So I don't think it's very high yield. Technically, you can do it, but I just don't really recommend it. So I incorporate vegetables into my diet. Start with meat, maybe add a vegetable for dinner. Fruits, I do like fruits a lot. I'm a big berry guy. I grow my own blackberries and raspberries and blueberries and strawberries, and then I will eat them indiscriminately during the summer when they are in. I don't eat them as much off season. There are some problems with potentially like oxalates in these. You kind of just have to figure it out. I mean, from again, my purposes, gas, bloating, that sort of stuff, they seem to work really well for me. It might not work well for you, so you just got to use your best judgment. There are some other fruits on here that are okay. Cantaloupe, all the citrus should be low fermentable, so that's really nice for a lot of people who like oranges and that sort of thing. Again, I hear, well, what about my reflux? Orange juice is probably not so good because it has all the added sugar. Regular oranges usually are pretty well tolerated. And again, I think that has more to do with the other components that are within the juice itself rather than the actual citrus irritating the reflux. So I do incorporate berries. Usually I'll have, like I said, if I've had berries in season or if I'm growing them, I will eat them for breakfast with my eggs. And that's how I manage that. Meat, some vegetables, some berries, again, all in that low fermentable thing. There is some approved dairy. Dairy can be fine. Hard cheeses are low in lactose, so I usually just eat cheddar. I've got a list of them here: Colby, Parmesan, Swiss. Those things should be fine, so if you like cheese, you can eat that stuff. It's no problem. Low FODMAP will technically allow for half and half. I think that's okay. I generally just recommend not putting that in the mix because it's just an additional variable that you can control. And I think in this game, if you can control the variables, control them. If it's something that questionably could bother you, I'd probably just leave it off. Yogurt is a big question. Everybody likes yogurt because of the probiotics. The problem with our yogurt that we make here is that it's really sweet and usually has artificial stuff in it. So it's not very good value from a nutritional standpoint. The yogurts that I like, good quality Greek yogurt, full fat, plain. Okay, we buy Chobani, and that's very low in lactose. Greek yogurt may have 3% lactose or something. It's not very much. So that sugar content, again, that sugar is what you're trying to avoid here, is really low. Icelandic yogurt's great. Icelandic yogurt has basically no lactose in it. It's very bitter. So we're not used to that kind of taste. So I'll put fruit in there or something, and that seems to be very good. And it's a very good source of protein. Icelandic yogurt's very dense in protein. So you don't have to eat it, but if you want something to mix it up, that's typically what I'll eat for dessert or something. If I'm hungry after dinner, I'll just have a yogurt and berries. So dairy, pretty limited, and I think that's probably for the best. Get asked about raw milk sometimes. Raw milk's fine. If you tolerate it, I have no problem with that. I think it's also very nutritionally dense. May get into that in another video or something. On this list, you'll see non-dairy alternatives if you look at it once I upload it. I don't like any of them. They're highly processed. I can't milk a nut, so just leave them off. Grains, really don't like grains. I don't think you need them. You get plenty of short-chain fatty acids from fats in butter and eggs and meat. You don't need short-chain fatty acids from fibers to maintain healthy bowel. And they always are problematic. A lot of these wheat strains come from glycophosphates that are treated with glycophosphates. That can be irritating to the bowel. A lot of them will have seed oils in them. If you check the back label of a lot of these breads that come in, sit on the shelf for weeks, they're obviously preserved with something, and usually they will have seed oils in them, which I hate for the small intestine. And I'll get to that too. Unnecessary sources of carbohydrates. I just basically leave it off. I'll eat rice sometimes. And if my kids want pancakes, I'll make them pancakes. But that's pretty much it. I don't like oatmeal. I don't like grits. I found nasty stuff in there. Just reading nutrition labels for folks. And I think if you're going to eat something, make it worth your time. These things are not very dense in nutrition. If you're going to eat something for breakfast, don't eat something that's going to mess you up. Eat something that's going to sit really well with you and give you a lot of energy, like an egg, frankly. So grains, I limit them. I wouldn't go too crazy with them. This will have a dessert section on here. No desserts, just none for now. If you really want to tighten things up, like I said, the Icelandic yogurt with berries is great. I really don't have any problem with that. Beyond that, I just would stay away from desserts. And it's kind of a joke too, because it says, well, anything that you can make with allowed foods. But as you can hear, my recommendations are pretty restrictive, so I would just kind of stay away from that section. Beverages was my favorite part because everybody hates me after I tell them they can't drink their stuff. You can do everything perfect with the food that you put in your body. If you do not get the beverages right, you will not get better. The most common things that I run into, it's not so much sodas anymore. A lot of people are off sodas, which is good. Still have some diet soda holdouts. Obviously, those got to go. Artificial sweeteners, heavy sugar burden, just not even close to being something that you should put in your body. Coffees are the worst. People put some of the craziest stuff in their coffee, and not a little, like a lot of crazy stuff in their coffees. There was a meme, I guess, going around recently that showed one of these Dunkin' Donut coffee drinks that had the equivalent sugar of like 17 donuts. So you can have one drink that is the equivalent of 17 donuts, and that's what you're eating for breakfast, in addition to probably a donut. So you can lose a lot of ground with these things. Really, water, black coffee, unsweetened tea, herbal tea is fine. Nothing with sweet stuff in it. People hate to hear it, but that's the truth. Now, coffee, I think you can get away with a little bit. Again, half and half is technically low fermentable. You can use half and half. I have people who use Kerrygold butter. Kerrygold butter is a great grass-fed butter. It's pretty nutritionally dense, and essentially it's just heavy cream, which is very low in lactose and salt. It takes the edge off the bitter taste of the coffee. It really smooths it out, and you could get some pretty decent benefits with that, especially butyrates. Butyrates are those things that turn into short-chain fatty acids, right? So butter's full of them. You can get a lot that way. Butyrates are very important for bowel health. They help the intestinal mucosa heal. So if you're dealing with an inflammatory condition, like most of this stuff probably is at some level, you'd need to have a good source of butyrates. But again, you can get that through butter. You can get it through eggs. You can get it through meat. You do not need grains for that. I have some people that'll supplement with fiber supplements and do very well on them. Those are non or very low fermentable, and I think that's okay too, because that's a very good source of short chain fatty acids essentially. So beverages really pretty limited. Unsweetened coffee or coffee with something like butter or half and half in it. Unsweetened tea, water. That's it. That's all I drink. Alcohol. I don't think you're going to find a beer that's going to work for you, frankly. I've been through that. When I was first going through all these dietary restrictions for myself, I went through a lot of different beers. Never found one that worked. They all bloated me like crazy, and I think you just cut it out. I mean, the things that I think sometimes are okay are things like a good quality red wine. I will drink scotch. I get good quality scotch, and I drink it sparingly, but I drink it. And they don't bother me. And I don't know if that's because my diet is really good otherwise. Maybe it is compensating for that alcohol a little bit. But, alcohol, the benefits are not really outweighed by the risk long term. So I'd really cut that down, especially if you're trying to get things under control quickly, like within a couple weeks. Seasonings, there's a lot of stuff on this sheet. Most spices and stuff you're not going to have any problem with. Garlic powder, onion powder are fine, salt, pepper, all that stuff. They will allow things like vinegar, balsamic vinegar, which I like from a nutritional standpoint. On this, they will allow pure maple syrup, which is not processed, obviously. I do okay with that, actually. When I make pancakes, if I put some syrup on it, use stuff that came from a tree, and it seems to work out fine. So you can take that in or out depending on your goals. If you're going to cook with something, it has to be olive oil or just a good quality butter. Beef tallow, duck fat, that sort of stuff, things that are rendered. But you just no seed oils, none. I mean, you've got to stay away from all of them. Canola, vegetable, sunflower, soybean, peanut, safflower, grapeseed oil, all of these things are just toxic. I mean, people don't really think about them. They're in pretty much everything. I tell people, if you are eating something with a nutrition label, you need to watch for seed oils because they will sneak them in. The problem with seed oils are really multifactorial. One, they will increase inflammation in the small intestine and spread out gap junctions, right? So if the small intestinal integrity is altered, that's what sets you up for stuff like small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, dysmotilities, IBS, worse, potentially even IBD. There is some data to suggest that consumption of ultra processed foods on a regular basis, like fried foods, at least once, at minimum or a maximum one serving daily, drastically increases your risk for inflammatory bowel diseases like Crohn's and ulcerative colitis. That's true with things that are highly processed, that contain a lot of sugar and a lot of salt. So you got to watch those things. Obviously, that's not compliant with any of these dietary recommendations, but it's the seed oils in there that do that. I am increasingly convinced that seed oils are problematic in the biliary tract. I'm seeing younger and younger people burn out their gallbladders for no other apparent reason. I see people who consume high amounts of processed foods, i.e. seed oils, burn out their livers, even without excessive alcohol use. And by burnout, I mean liver failure, cirrhosis, and that you can't get that back. Obviously, there are going to be other problems here. I think that there are some interesting mouse models where the regular consumption of seed oil interferes with the HPA axis, which is the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal gland axis, which essentially will give you something like a Cushing syndrome, where you have insulin resistance, you have delay, like slow metabolism, inappropriate stress response, like the whole 9 yards. So anything that can do that kind of stuff, you need to just not have in your diet at all. And I tell this to people who are doing well too. Even if people don't ask me, I tell them, you got to stay away from seed oils. I mean, that's like number one on my list. That and artificial sweeteners have just got to go. Think about how you can do this. Again, I'm going to try to post this. I'm going to try to scan it and post it, or at least take a picture or something. I'll figure something out, but I'll put it on there just so you can have it as a reference. I didn't mention artificial sweeteners that much in here. There's no good one. there's not a single good one. The ones that I see the most problems with are the sugar alcohols, erythritol and xylitol. You got to watch out for those. They'll hide them in gum, mints, all sorts of stuff. So really watch out for those. Anything that tastes good and says zero sugar has sugar. You're not going to get away with it. There's no easy way around this. You're just going to have to cut it out. Monk fruit, stevia, yeah, technically they're natural, but some people just don't do well with them. So I just stay away from them. If you can live without it, live without it. You'll do much better. So I hope this helps. And I'll tell you what I do with my diet, and this is what I do basically 6 days out of the week. 4 to 5 eggs in the morning with berries if I have them, and I'll cook them in Kerrygold butter. I will eat 2 beef patties with cheddar and usually a boiled egg or 2 for lunch. And then for dinner, like I said, whatever meat my wife decides to cook that night, and then one of those acceptable vegetables, maybe rice. If I need a snack, protein, packed yogurt, Icelandic yogurt, or full-fat Greek yogurt with berries in it. And that's pretty much it. Water and black coffee. That's all I do. I've got kids. Sometimes they want to go out for ice cream. Sometimes they want to eat pizza. I'm going to take them out. It's not going to be the end of the world. I'll go right back to my diet the next day and straighten all my gut stuff out. So from a symptom standpoint, it definitely works. I think for an overall health standpoint, it'll definitely work. I think for those common conditions, abdominal pain, gas, bloating, irregular bowel habits, nausea, even heartburn or reflux, this is the diet. This will absolutely clear those things up. It's also possible that this could be useful, and I think it is useful for autoimmune conditions. I think this would be an acceptable diet for folks who are struggling with cancers, maybe even get more restrictive with those. I think that this would be an acceptable diet for fatty liver. I think it covers that basis. So basically kind of just a good all-around diet. If you've got those other things going on, try it out, monitor your symptoms, see what happens. I know that when I do this, my rosacea goes away and I don't have to worry about it. If I get off my diet, it comes right back. And so these autoimmune skin conditions, I think it can be a very powerful tool. And people have seen this. If you look online, there'll be testimonials about folks who have done carnivore diet with really bad psoriasis or rosacea where they have pustules and basically looks like really terrible acne that just clears up when they clean up their diet. And it does not have to be complicated. Don't let anybody tell you it is. Pick a meat. If you want a vegetable, pick a vegetable. If you want a fruit, pick a fruit from this list and you should be fine. Just cut out the junk and stop cooking with seed oils. Stop consuming seed oils and artificial sweeteners. And so, this is basically my rundown. If you have any questions, I guess you can probably comment on this thing. I'll check it. I don't know. I don't know how it works. I'm just starting out here, so we'll see how this plays out. But again, follow me on X. Follow me here. If you like this video, like and subscribe, I suppose. And I'll try to at least put up maybe a video a week or something, or every couple of days. I'm not going to go too crazy with it, but we'll try to keep this pretty fresh. All right, thanks. Have a good evening.